Oh, how's it going today? So, we're doing a little, I don't know, it's not really spring cleaning per se, but I don't know, it sounds good. How's that sound? Sounds good. Well, a few auction doodads the other day. Actually, it's kind of interesting. You never know what happens at auctions. They were trying to auction off what was left of a table of stereo gear. There were a couple things I was mildly interested in, not much. Anyway, they got the bidding up to like, I don't know, $10. I'd given up at $5. The guy wins and turns to me and says, if you want the rest of that, I'll split the price. I only wanted these 2 items, so the bulk of it I ended up with for $5. Then another guy comes up and says he wants a receiver for $5. So actually, technically, I paid $0 for this. And this is one of the pieces. I'm just giving it, seeing what I can make out of this. So basically for $0, if this doesn't work, it can turn into usable parts. This is actually an Optimus. It's a Radio Shack's brand. I think it's a STAV-3000 digital synthesized receiver. And I bought that. So it looks like it's been in storage under a dumpster for a couple years, but that's okay. It weighs a ton. This is probably made in the 90s. Kind of the end of the, in my book, the end of the stereo craze and the beginning of the kind of the AV surround sound craze. So these receivers are starting to kind of change a little bit. So we're just giving it a quick bath here and see what we got going. Actually, they had quite a bit of stereo stuff over at the auction the other day. I think somebody cleaned out a storage locker. I'd heard a couple different rumors. All I can tell you was that they had about 5 weeks of stereo stuff, and not just a little stereo stuff, a lot. They had a number of speakers. And that's okay. So this was probably a couple $100 new, probably $150, I'm guessing. I'm just going to fire it up. I'm just going to throw the coals to it and see if it works. This also has inputs for video equipment, so it might be somewhat useful. But for basically free, it doesn't matter. You can always use another stereo amp for something. You can trade it away. You can use it for testing stuff in your shop. That's what about 90% of my stuff ends up being, is testing stuff. So let's see here. I've just got headphones. We're just going to use headphones here. It looks like, what is that? I don't know what that light is. Well, it popped. Oh, there's the tuner. Huh. What that light say anyway? This is kind of a basic nuts and bolts unit. What do we got here? Speakers and bass and mid-range, and it's like the tuners over here. Volume, left and right, few filters. This is power. Protection. Okay, so it's, well, well, it looks like the tuner section is out of the thing. Huh. Okay. Well, I kind of expected this little eventuality. I went ahead and just took the screws loose just to see what other time bombs are in there. Yeah, let's see what we can find. So with just a tiny bit of elbow grease, I've kind of rejuvenated the lid a little bit, made it look at least a little bit more presentable. So this has a, I don't know, looks like it has a power amp section, some digital stuff, and a tuner over here, and it actually has a pretty good sized heatsink. If worse comes to worse and this is a dud, I've got some parts and some big heatsinks. This is actually pretty much, at least the power amp section is discrete. So like I said, I think this is from the 90s. It looks like it's been sitting around. A lot of the stereo stuff that I saw at the auction mill had a lot of corrosion on it. Like it'd been sitting for a long time. A lot of this stuff didn't go for very much because it was so corroded out. It's too bad. I think I've mentioned this before. You know, if you don't want something, just give it away. Don't let it rot. What do we got here? Well, this is kind of basic nuts and bolts and that. No, I was going to say that cap is swollen up, but not, I don't think. Oh, huh, that's interesting. The you can just barely see this here. There's a little hood there where the... Well, that's weird. There's a little hood here where the display is. Actually, it has a light in it, or a couple lights. There's like a little... So back here is the power supply. This is inside is relatively clean on this thing. Some of these you could plant flowers in. I don't know, it doesn't look too horrible other than it's sat somewhere. What's the deal on that? This light doesn't light? What does that do? I thought this was digital. Oh, you know what this is? I had to think about this for a second. This is digital, but it's backlit with actual incandescent light. Where's the... there. What's that say? What's it say? I'm trying to read this through the FM tuned stereo. Okay, so we should have noise. So I got to put a couple lights in this thing. Yeah. Okay, that's easy enough to do. Well, it's just ridiculously dumb. Excuse me. So this is some early... This has a little bit of everything in it. Like I said, if worse comes to worse, it probably has some usable parts. So what would you do with this if it was busted? Well, you'd definitely grab onto the power transformer. That could be useful. It's a little tiny bit warm, not much. These caps may have some use. May is the key word. There's a number of heat sinks in here, including this one. This is a massive heat sink. And this is all discrete. If you were living right, there's a good chance that the digital junk in this thing died and this power amp was probably okay. There's a good chance you could pry this out of here or dig into it and bypass all this digital crud, including the volume control. Probably has a digital volume control. No, it actually has an analog volume control. Well, nowadays it's a little hard to tell. Actually, they have rotary volume controls that look like analog, but they're digital. So it actually goes to this board underneath. I don't know. It's hard to say without an oscilloscope. Well, that was easy. And there is a lot of electrolytics on this baby, especially this appears to be the tuner section here. Let me tell you, these have really shrunk up over the years. These things are about this size nowadays. This appears to be this is like the switchboard for the audio, and this is a switch for the video. I don't know whether they produced a service manual for this or not. But like I said, even if it was dead, you could find some usable parts. It's all discrete, so there's plenty of things to play with on there. You don't have to be a rich person to have fun. So what I'll do is I'll test this a little bit more, and I've already got a couple receivers that I use in my shop, but from time to time I have people ask me if I can find a cheap one. If it's a runner and it's cheap, you know, if it's $10 or something like that, and this would fit that bill. So I'll make $10, probably. That'd be the goal. And that'd be enough for a tasty lunch. Or maybe I'll just trade for a tasty lunch or something better. Maybe a shortwave radio. How's that sound? Well, that was pretty easy. Okie dokie. Well, we'll let you scoot then. So there you go. There's the Optimus. The STAV-3000 and its infinite glory. I guess what we learned here is don't judge a book by its cover, and don't take things for granted. Just because the display's out doesn't mean it's dead. It means the lights are out of the thing. Have a great day. Have fun. Take it easy.